Hi guys, welcome to lesson 8.5. We're going to be talking about area today in our lesson. You should have either downloaded and printed or gotten a copy of our formula sheet, which looks like this. Yours, if you print it out, is obviously going to be on white paper. Our formula sheet is based off of the 7th grade PSSA. So if you are going to be taking the PSSA in the springtime here, you are going to have access to this formula sheet in your PSSA booklet. But I always like to give you a copy of it for while we're working on this unit. You're going to see the different shapes that are along here. These are all the shapes that we're going to be working with in this chapter with working with area. And then down here we have the volume and the surface area, which we'll talk about in our next unit then. On the back side, there are some other things that we'll use. This is from the 8th grade formula sheet. So we're going to be talking about a couple other three-dimensional solids later on when we get to our 3D unit. And so this is all back there. Just wanted to let you know so that you could see what was going on here. But we are going to be using the 7th grade side that's right up here with all the different shapes on it for this particular part of our unit. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this webcam part here. So that is there. You should be back to just my smartboard screen, hopefully. And I'm going to grab my calculator here real quickly. We were talking about area, and area, when we discuss it, is the number of square units that a figure is going to encompass. So area is a two-dimensional thing. So its units are actually squared, or they look like inches squared, feet squared, yards squared. When we say it, though, we actually read the word square first. So we write them out as square units, square feet, square miles. Area covers in a space, so it's kind of like using a crayon if you're going to be coloring in a picture. If you remember from earlier, we talked about perimeters being like the Sharpie outline, but area is coloring it in. So over here, when we talk about square units the figure encompasses, we could actually count up how many squares are here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34. So this one we would call 34, and we can either write units squared like this with the exponent, or we could write out square units. So those are two ways that we can actually label this one. But because we are filling in this two-dimensional space, length and width are the two dimensions that we're working with. We are going to call it, our units are all going to be squared then. Taking a look down below, steps to find area, you're going to identify what shape you're working with, locate and write your formula using your formula sheet, identify the key parts of the polygon that are needed for the formula. So different shapes have different key parts. If you're looking at your formula sheet, our circle has what's called a radius. Our triangle has a base and a height, and the base and the height are perpendicular to each other. A square has S, which stands for the side. The rectangle has length and width. The parallelogram has base and height similar to the triangle, and your trapezoid has a height, and then it also has two bases. The two bases for your trapezoid are always going to be your two parallel sides that you're looking at. So we would identify those key parts, and then you'll just go ahead and plug in your values into the formula and calculate. So today's lesson is a really simple one. Please let it be simple. You're basically just looking to find a formula, plugging in the numbers, and going from there. In example 1 here, we have a rectangle. So when I go to my formula sheet, I see A equals LW. And just be careful with your L that it doesn't look like the number 1. I don't want you to confuse it. So A equals, if we go into our picture on our formula sheet, L goes across the bottom here and W goes up the side. So I'm going to plug in my numbers. I'm going to have 6 is represented by the L. And these are multiplied because they're just bumped up next to each other. So some hidden math there. And W is going to be 3. So when I multiply these, 6 times 3 is 18. My units are yards, and I'm going to go ahead and give them that little exponent for squared. My next one, my polygon is a triangle. Looking at my formula sheet, I see A equals 1/2 BH. Notice the capital A versus the lowercase b and h. A represents area as a capital. We did see lowercase a before when we talked about Pythagorean theorem. So there is a difference between capitals and uppercase, or lowercase, excuse me. So for our triangle, 1/2 times base is 35, times the height is going to be 17. So if I do 1/2 times 35 times 17, I get 297.5, and that's going to be inches squared here. For the next one, this is a parallelogram. Parallelogram. Formula for area is going to be base times height. So looking at my picture, my base is 5. The height has to be perpendicular to the base. And I kind of look at it If you actually look at that line that's in there with the right angle, it looks like a little H. So that kind of reminds you which one you're working at. So that's a 2, and 5 times 2 is going to give me 10, and I'm going to have feet squared. So that's my first round there. On page 14, example number 4, here we have a square. So my formula is A equals S squared, S representing one of the sides, and my side here is actually 10, so I'm going to do 10 squared. Squared just means you're multiplying the number by itself, so 10 times 10 is 100. We're going to get inches squared as our label then. For this next one, we do have a trapezoid. And the formula for trapezoid is a little bit tricky in that sometimes people will end up messing up, and they mess up right here. Instead of adding these together, a lot of times people will multiply. So please make sure that you're being careful as you take a look at that. So 1/2 times the height, notice there's the little h, it is backwards, but it still works, times 9. Parentheses, in parentheses, I'm looking at my 2 bases. The top is 6. And the bottom is 18. So I'm going to add those 2 together here. You should be doing parentheses first, or if you type this into your calculator, you can just type 1/2 times 9 times parentheses 6 plus 18. And when you do so, you're going to get area for this one is equal to 108, and that's going to be inches squared. Our next example here is a triangle. If you notice, it does have an obtuse angle down here. Because of that, we actually can't represent the height inside the triangle, so the height just gets represented and it's drawn outside. The height goes from the very tippy top all the way straight down to the floor, so our height is right here on the outside. So area is 1/2 times base times height. So your formula, 1/2, your base is 9, and your height is 4. So your area here is going to be 18 feet squared, or 18 square feet is actually how you would read that out as an answer then. And that wraps it up then for lesson 8.5 on area.